drill. Talking business, talking shop, making moves non-stop. From e-com to hustle, straight talk, no props. Straight talk, no gimmicks, no lies. Hey, I break it down with the sharpest minds. Money, moves, mindset, grind. If you're ready to win, then tune in live. Big names, big games, all the lessons they bring. From Jelly Belly to AA Kings. From the startup grind to the top tier pros. We crack the code, now here we go. Straight talk, commerce, getting to know. Wayne Altman, let's start the show.
Hey everybody, today on the show, we are joined by a true broadcasting legend. A voice that defined Chicago radio and left a lasting mark on American airwaves. He's in the Hall of Fame, Radio Hall of Fame. I mean, that's huge. You know him from his groundbreaking work on the Steve Garry Show, his unforgettable partnership with Ro Khan, and his fearless, no-nonsense take on the world that's captivated audiences for decades. Decades? Wow. He's a member of the National Radio Hall of Fame, a pioneer of personality-driven talk radio, and one of the very rare voices who's managed to stay relevant, entertaining, and completely authentic through every evolution of the media landscape. Please welcome to Straight Talk Interviews, the one, the only, and a personal friend of mine, Garry Meier.
Thank you, Wayne. And I hear that and I think, wow, but I still pick up my dog's droppings every day. So I'm just a regular guy, doesn't matter, all those titles. Okay, they're nice, but yeah, I thank you for that. And I'm a little humbled by those platitudes. It's interesting. But I got to a point where I got to do something, and I'm still doing something I really love. That's the main thing.
Yeah, that makes it a lot easier. I used to think that was absolute nonsense when they said, do what you love to do. It does make things easier. I've had a lot of different jobs in my life. I've owned a lot of different businesses in my life, none of which that I particularly loved. But I will say that I am very fond of doing Straight Talk Commerce and the interview series. And it does make it a heck of a lot easier when you like what you do. I'm going to grant people that. It does make it a lot better. Garry, what first drew you to radio, and did you ever imagine it would lead to a Hall of Fame career?
I'll start with the second part. I didn't even know there was a Radio Hall of Fame when I started, and I don't even know if it was at that point in motion when I started. But here's a flashpoint moment. My father owned a dry cleaners, and I would work in the dry cleaners at a very young age. I'm talking 9, 10 years old. I guess they didn't have child labor laws back then either. And he had a radio on in the area where we cleaned the clothes. And I remember this guy by the name of Paul Harvey coming on.
Yeah.
And even at this young age, I thought, my God, this guy's voice and what he's saying is very engaging. And I found that very hypnotic, and I filed it away. And then as I got older and started to listen to your rock stations or whatever in Chicago, there were guys on the air that had a personality that I was very akin to, and started to really think, can I make a living doing that? Is that possible? Because they have a sense of humor like I have. And I thought, well, maybe if I plug myself in, I could do that too. And didn't know anybody that was in the business, didn't know how to get into the business. And that's where it kind of stayed for a few years. Another flashpoint, one of the guys on the radio in Chicago had a feature where he would read a listener's letter every day. He also talked about being reincarnated as a butterfly. One day I walk out of my house and there's a huge monarch butterfly dead on the lawn in perfect condition. My first thought, Wayne, this guy's name was Larry Lujak. I'm going to send this to Larry and tell him I killed one of his relatives and see what happens. He may pick it for one of his features in the afternoon. So I scotch taped this butterfly, typed out the letter, "Dear Larry, I was hearing you talk about reincarnation as a butterfly, and I think I killed your uncle," and just sent that to him. 3 days later, he reads it on his show. with my name and all. And I'm like, oh my God,
Oh,
my
wow.
material. So now it's really starting to gain some steam. Still didn't know how to enter. So I did the logical thing and went into pharmacy school. And the reason that happened is because the Vietnam War was raging and I'm 18 and very draftable. And I thought, oh, I don't know, should I go in the military? I don't think I am cut out for that. And there was a pharmacist that had started working at the store I was at who had just graduated and making good money, driving a nice car. And I thought, I'll be a pharmacist. He's a pharmacist. Maybe I can be a pharmacist. So I enrolled in pharmacy school and realized pretty early on this was not going to be for me either. Military, pharmacy, just eliminating things right along. So then I thought, I don't want to be a poor student anymore. My cousin offered me a job at a construction site that he was working at. So I started that and I thought, well, I'll bank some money and then start to explore broadcasting. And I did what we often did back then, and some people might have to Google this, the Yellow Pages. This was a book of businesses, and everything was in there, including broadcasting schools. I picked one in the Chicago area, just at random, and then started to go. And that turned out to be, everything that's worked in my life has been organic, and the broadcasting school was organic, and I'll tell you why in a minute. I know you want to break these questions up, so I'll just...
All right. No. I'm fascinated. I'm going over in my mind. You randomly picked a broadcasting school in the Chicago area and eventually turn that into a Hall of Fame. You are directly under Marconi in the Hall of Fame. I looked, okay?
It's alphabetical, Wayne. Marconi, Meier.
I get it. But that's important. That's a good spot to be in, G. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, wait a minute. He didn't say he went to the University of Michigan Broadcasting School. He didn't say he went to Bill and Ted's Excellent Broadcasting School in South Side of Chicago. And the guy turned it into a Hall of Fame career. Dude, that is crazy awesome.
You know what that reminds me of? I heard Elton John interviewed once, and he was asked how he and Bernie Taupin got together. And this is one of the most kismet, bizarro moments. I don't know what you believe in, fake, kismet, randomness. He said he could play the piano, but he couldn't write lyrics. So he had this agent, and he went to his office, and he said, hey, I don't know how to write lyrics. And the agent had a stack of resumes and manila envelopes on his desk. And he said, pick one of these. These are people that want to do what you're doing. Elton picked out of the stack this random package. It was Bernie Taupin's. And I'm thinking, you talk about, what is that? How does that work in the atmosphere? And that's their relationship. But I mean, that's the Lennon and McCartney sign right there. It's either, I guess, meant to be or whatever.
Yeah, I have a very similar story with how I met my wife. Up to that, I mean, picking something at random or whatever, that's we have those relationships. You and I, as a matter of fact, we met through metal, right? And one of the things that caught my eye and drew me to you was the real show with metal was not going on in the video. It was a video chat kind of like this, but that's not where the show was for me. The show was in the comments section where you couldn't keep your fingers to yourself and were making all of these comments that I am having a hard time breathing. They were just so funny and so quick that I just was like, damn, I gotta meet Garry and I gotta get to know him because that's my kind of humor, Can you describe for me the early days, those early days on air? Was there ever a moment, or when was the moment that you felt like, hey, I'm there, I've made it?
Well, going back to this broadcasting school, there was a teacher there who had just moved from Detroit to work at a Chicago radio station, and he was getting married in a few months, and he said, hey, I need somebody to help me, show me around and get acclimated to Chicago. I said, I'm your guy. I've lived here my entire life. So we became friends. And then a couple months later, he said, there's an opening at the radio station I'm at, and I'm going to recommend you. And oh my God, I just started this career a couple months ago. I'm going to be working on a Chicago radio station. Usually the path is you work at these little stations around the country and try to build to bigger cities. So I start working, doing the all night shift at this radio station. And the first night I was on the air. Now, this station was automated, meaning you pre recorded everything and plugged it into a machine, but still, it's a radio station. On Halloween of 1973, he comes to me, this friend of mine who was helping me along. He said, we're going to put you on tonight. You're going to record the news and da da da. And I was not prepared because we hadn't discussed it at that point. We were just kind of showing me around, and I would just change tapes and things. And then oh my God, this is it. This is the moment. So I recorded the news and all that. And I don't even remember what I said. I just know I did it, and they plugged it in, and I heard my voice go over the airwaves. That coupled with the reading of the letter from the guy on that, when you are now in it, you're really in the core. And here's the other moment. I guess it comes in threes. The movie American Graffiti. If you have seen this movie,
yeah,
it's the first movie from George Lucas, and throughout the movie, this disc jockey Wolfman Jack is present either in person or via the radio. The radio is the link. It's on constantly because they're in their cars throughout the movie. And when they showed Wolfman Jack in the studio, in the movie, this was it. I thought, I've got to go. And that's before I got into pharmacy school. But that all came together, and I couldn't resist. I just had to go. And then started working at this one radio station, went to the next one, and on. And then I got to meet, this is another magical moment, I got to meet Wolfman Jack. And it was the orb. I'm in the orb, but I'm really in the orb because people that inspired me, and even better, the guy that read my letter, I ended up working on the same radio station as him.
Oh, wow.
The worlds collided in such a way that I would often, Wayne, step back when things were happening and go, is this happening or am I having a dream? Because a lot of it was so incredible.
Yeah, that's cool. I love the fact that meeting your hero sometimes, a lot of times it goes very wrong.
Right.
A lot of times it turns sideways and it gets ugly super quick. And I've met some of those. Okay.
I have an example of that if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, I would love to hear it. Yeah.
Recently, there was this documentary on HBO about Paul Rubens, aka Pee Wee Herman.
Pee Wee Herman, yeah.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to go behind the scenes and see this guy try to deal with this alter ego, and he really couldn't come to terms with the fact that nobody cared about Paul Rubens, but everybody loved Pee Wee Herman. When he was at his height of Pee Wee Herman, he came through Chicago and was on our radio show. Now, in my mind, I want to think that everything is the way it is in Disney World all the time, where people are in their costumes all the time. I thought when Pee Wee came up, he was going to be Pee Wee Herman. He was Paul Rubens, so he's got his hair straight up and 3-day growth of beard, and it's like, wow, seeing Santa in his underwear. But the point that I'm going for here, I was a huge Pee Wee Herman fan, as a lot of people were, and I had the Pee Wee Herman fan club card. So we're in the green room waiting for him to go on the show, and I take the fan club card out, and I'm fawning all over this guy. I really like you, and and he looked at me like I was crazy, and I thought, if you're not into it, then why am I this into it?
Why would anybody be?
Yeah, fake it for me.
Dude.
Because Paul Rubens couldn't come to terms with Pee Wee Herman. And I saw it up close way before this HBO documentary. I saw how that was such a conflict for him.
That is insane to me.
Yeah.
I mean, because you would think that, you hear that a lot. You hear that a lot. People that have struck gold with a particular character that they played in a movie or a part that they had, and they made a huge success. Let me tell you something. I would milk that cow till it turned to dust. I would always have something better in my back pocket or work on something, and have it ready for when that didn't work anymore. I did stand-up comedy for about 5 years when I came out to California. And I got to a crossroads. I got to a fork in the road. Do I go down comedy, or do I have a family and a wife? And because I didn't think it was fair to them if I was going to, for me to pursue that while I was trying to start a family. Anyway, I met a lot of guys like that. A lot of guys that would be resentful of the success that they'd already achieved. And they didn't like being asked to do a certain impression or play a certain
Right.
character anymore. A lot
Yeah.
of musicians, they resent a song. They didn't like the song, but it
Yeah.
turned out to be a hit, and now we're asked to play it all the time. Listen,
Yeah.
Buster, what do you think you got to the promised land? You made it to the area. I talk about that on my show a lot, Garry. I talk
Yeah.
about it a lot. Now,
Yeah. Actors, I think, suffer that greatly because they get the success and the accolades from that, whatever that is, and then they go, well, now I'm typecast. I really don't want to be known as that all the time. And I think comes to mind now, Miley Cyrus when she was Hannah Montana on the Disney Channel,
yeah,
and that took her to the promised land. But
yeah,
as soon as she could start dissing Hannah Montana, and I'm not that squeaky clean, and then she did anything she could and undressed as much as she could to denigrate Hannah Montana. And I'm thinking, wow, why can't you just appreciate that most people would kill if they're in
evolve.
that business?
If that's your problem, just evolve. Okay, you don't
Yeah.
have to make it so drastic. You don't have
Yeah,
to. It's
and
not
the
your
other one
enemy.
that comes to mind is Daniel Craig is in this movie that came out about a year ago called Queer. Daniel Craig played James Bond
James
for a
Bond,
number
yeah.
of movies. And when I heard him interviewed when he was doing the last one, he said, I'm so glad to be done with that. I'm thinking, are you kidding me? You know how many people of your profession would kill to be James Bond?
Yeah.
So when I'm watching this movie Queer, it's almost like he's doing, and I can't say this, actors want to do, they want to range, they want to do as
Sure.
much as they can. But it
Right.
looked like he was trying to go as far from James Bond as he could, and being a homosexual would do that. And I'm thinking,
For sure.
nobody's going to think this is bad that you were James Bond, and you were a damn good one too. Probably I think, even
Very
better
good
than
James
Sean
Bond.
Connery in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just don't, to your point, I don't understand. What's the problem? You worked hard to get to that point, to get that fame, and now I'm only known as that. Yeah, well, it pays the bills, doesn't it?
Well, it will sabotage your entire career very quickly. I'm thinking of Daniel Radcliffe, played Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And he played another role right after all of the Harry Potter. He made enough money from Harry Potter, he never had to
Right.
work again.
Right.
And this moron goes so far to the other side, you'll probably never see him in anything again, because he did that. He self-destructed the Harry Potter part of him, and now people can't have their kids around this Joker anymore.
But that's funny you said that the only reason they can do whatever they want to do, whether it works or not, is because of the money they made from being that. The other part of that is the comedic actor who does a lot of comedies and goes, oh, I want to be a serious actor. And they start doing serious roles, and nobody wants to accept them as that because they're so good at making us laugh, but they have a range, and they got to show us their range.
Yeah. Well, Steve Martin became, was a very funny, did very funny movies, then made that 180-degree turn, became serious actor, did that, and just now is kind of starting to relax a little bit and realize, okay, maybe
That's
I
the
didn't
money
need to go
shot.
so hard in the paint, and I can be funny again.
Yeah.
Well, look, you've worked with some of the most iconic names in radio. What have those partnerships taught you about chemistry and connection?
Well,
Because it's kind of collaborative. What you're doing is kind of collaborative, is it not?
No, it's, if you're with a partner, it is totally, because it's the percussion that you have between the two of you, no matter if you're doing radio or work in an office and creating something together. It has to be that rhythm that works. Otherwise, especially in radio, because you're in a room with somebody for 4.5, 5 hours a day, this close, 4 feet away. And that has to work. Otherwise, you'll just kill each other. And I found two partners initially that worked well together until it didn't. But if it works, it's great. And to your point on that, and I think you saw this on my podcast when I interviewed Penn Jillette, of Penn and Teller. And Penn and Teller, to me, that's the gold standard of partnerships. They have the longest running partnership in all of show business now. 50 some years. And when I had Penn on, and I was almost in tears at the end because he said some things that just moved me to where he and Teller were at this lounge in Vegas because they have a residency there, and they went to see this old comedic duo that used to be on Ed Sullivan.
We were playing in Atlantic City. We were in the big room, and I got a call from Rossi, who said it was a cold call. I'd never met him, and he said, Alan and Rossi, we're playing in the lounge, and he said, would you like to come see us? Now, I kind of touched on this earlier, but Teller and I rarely go out together, hardly ever go out together. Maybe we have 3 dinners a year together because we're always working. Nothing to really say. We say it all at work. And but I called Teller and I said, hey, you want to go see Alan and Rossi? And he said, oh, the guys that were on Ed Sullivan, we were children. I said, yeah. This is, 35 years ago. And we went to see Alan and Rossi, and there was a TV on stage before they came on, and it was playing their appearances on Ed Sullivan to remind people who they were. And the lounge they were playing was not enclosed, so you could hear all the slot machines, people wandering in and out. And there were about maybe 15 people, 20 people in the audience. And Alan and Rossi came out and did their some of their routines from Ed Sullivan from all those years before, and they did some stuff, and they were funny and they were good, but it was a situation that almost anyone in the world would call sad because these are people that played huge theaters and now they were playing for 20 people. They were good. That's important to say. And Teller and I are sipping our club sodas. And I looked over at Teller and I said, this is us in just a few years. And Teller took another sip of his club soda, looked over at me and said, I am so okay with that.
And I'm thinking, yes, see when it works. And these guys have tremendous success because they appreciate each other. They don't try to get into each other's business. They don't try to out-ego each other. You have to keep that ego in check because what happens in a lot of these partnerships that collapse, you can go back to Abbott and Costello and those great comedic partners of many decades ago, and you'd read about them. And what happened was either one started to make more money than the other, or one tried to do a land grab and thought he was the act more than the other guy. And now it's over because that's not going to work.
Well, look, with Penn and Teller especially, I mean, they've gone 40 years with Teller never saying a word on stage.
Right.
I mean, you can find Teller speaking all over the internet. He's got a great voice. You would wonder,
yes,
why the hell is he not saying anything? But guess what? He was able to realize the power of silence kept his ego in check, which is extraordinarily rare, especially in that kind of atmosphere. Look, I don't miss, this, I don't miss your show on Fridays. You have a cocktail show on Friday that I try very hard not to miss. And I watched that interview, and he is a hero of mine. I've always enjoyed magic. I do some magic myself, some tricks, not magic really, but, and Fool Us, when you, have you ever seen that show, Fool Us?
Oh yeah, watch it all the time.
It's not the show, it's the idea behind the show. Here are 2 schmoes who love magic so much that they want to be fooled. It's like they're little kids watching, and it hurts them, tremendously. They're featuring all of their friends. They're featuring all of these wonderful magicians, but they are so filled with wonder when they get fooled, and they are completely honest about it. And that takes humility, Garry. I love that humility for them to look and go, man, we have no idea. Thank God we have no idea how you did that.
Yes.
That really draws me to that. It makes Tracy, my wife, it makes Tracy crazy when I'm sitting in there watching Fool Us, because she knows I'm going to watch them back to back to back to back, and that'll be the evening,
Yes. And because I thought, seen every possible trick on earth, when they are fooled, I'm thinking, my God, that magician that just fooled them, what did they do? Because Penn and Teller should know every trick, but they don't. And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. Well, you got to come up with new and interesting ways of doing things. And they may have seen the trick 100,000 times before, but the way you did this, we didn't catch you.
Mm-hmm.
And you've said it a million times. We didn't catch you do it. We have no idea how you got from point A to point B. We watched. We know how this is done. We watched, and you didn't do that.
Yeah.
I get so tickled watching that.
Well, I had the honor of going to dinner with Penn and Teller several times, and I made the cardinal mistake. I said to Penn, hey, Teller did that trick. They were on stage earlier that evening. Did that trick where he pulled the straight. How did he do that? And Penn looks at me, very well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking, what am I asking here? I mean, why am I asking that? That's the magician's rule. You don't tell anybody.
Well, you know, that to be honest with you, the beginning of their career, they got in a lot of trouble with other magicians. They're kicked out of the Magic Castle and can never go to the Magic Castle because they began their career by taking all of those old tricks and revealing to people how they do a cup and ball routine with clear ball, with clear cups.
Yeah.
And it is still fascinating because they still get the job done.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they do a couple of things like that every now and then on stage, where they do the two boxes on stage and one gets in the box and disappears, and they show how they go under the stage. But in the end, they still pull off a trick that you can't figure out. And they showed you everything.
All right, everybody, that is a wrap on part one of this interview with the man is an absolute legend and a great friend. And really, what a ride it's been. From Radio Wars to Raw Truth, Garry Meier, he brings the kind of insight only a Hall of Famer can deliver. And I'm not done with him yet. In part two, we dig even deeper into moments that have defined his career, his thoughts on the future of broadcasting and streaming and all of the modern things, the things that we've done to radio. And we also talk about some stories that he doesn't tell very often, if at all. So trust me, you do not want to miss part two. I'm not going to make you wait a week to see that. As soon as I get it edited, you can stop laughing. And as soon as I can get it edited, you are going to be amazed. So thanks for watching part one. Wait just a couple days and I'll bring out part two. I will see you there.
No fluff, no hype, just the real deal. Wayne Altman's here, yeah, you know the drill. Talking business, talking shop, making moves non-stop. From e-com to hustle, straight talk, no props. Straight talk, no gimmicks, no lies. Hey, I break it down with the sharpest minds. Money, moves, mindset, grind. If you're ready to win, then tune in live. Big names, big games, all the lessons they bring. From Jelly Belly to AA Kings. From the startup grind to the top tier pros, we crack the code.